tell you something. It's getting pretty weird in here. Stevie the Guide here from Kerrville, Texas, on the banks of the Guadalupe River. It is 5 a.m. on a cold Friday morning here in Kerrville, and I'm happy to be here. But I got to tell you, some strange notions have come over me lately. And people who know me will know that that is not necessarily unusual for me. But I got to thinking, last night, I must say, I got to hand it to Garland O'Quinn at the Unity Church over here in Kerrville on Thursday nights. You know, I was hosting this series called Forbidden Discussions for a number of months here in Kerrville, and had met all kinds of wonderful people, open-minded, right-brained people, and Garland it decided to do a 5-week series called The Rhythms of the Universe, and he talks about all manner of different things in how the universe works, basically, and how light speed works, and the various energy, invisible vibrations. I mean, it is so weird to me that people can use this cell phone and use all manner of other wireless devices, and they can talk to people, on invisible airwaves, that can go around the world. You can actually see somebody on TV right as you're doing now if you're watching this broadcast. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, I submit to you that the only way that we can survive as a species is to be able to tune in better to the invisible airwaves, the radio waves that we commonly know are there, but we don't really tap into them. We use this left brain logical all the time, trying to figure out things on the ground. I used to have these conversations with my dad about space travel, and Dad and I used to watch Star Trek together. It was one of our favorite things to do, and it made our minds wander. That was a wonderful show to open up your mind to possibilities. And on the one hand, when I told Dad that I didn't believe the transporter machine would ever work, he said, "Hey, don't be too sure." When I was a boy, they had Buck Rogers, on the radio. All we had was the radio, and Buck Rogers was this guy that would get in a rocket and go into outer space and go to the moon and stuff like that. And that was just a fantasy a few years ago when Dad was a boy. He was like, now the space shuttle takes people up there like a tour bus, and people go to outer space all the time. Dick Tracy had a little watch, and he could see people and talk to them on his wristwatch, and now that's a reality. It's not a big deal, and so basically, Dad's his message was whatever man can imagine, it usually comes true, and you give him enough time to think it over, and he'll figure it out. And that is what's happening. If you look back over our history, you'll see whatever man has thought up and written about and talked about, it's eventually come true. Pretty much all of it. All right. Man imagined himself to fly. He flew. Man imagined, a laser beam weapon. We got all kinds of that. All right. And so, it begs the question. Well, anyway, what we were talking about with the regard to space travel was Dad said, I can't see humans traveling through space because the distances are so great, and we can't even go to the next planet very easily, much less to the next galaxy, and so that'll never happen. But it's my belief that we hit these different gears of consciousness, and that it's kind of like for forever and ever, it was thought that a human being could never run a 4-minute mile. And that record had never been broken. And but the minute somebody did, all of a sudden a whole bunch of other people did. It was thought that nobody could sail across the ocean somewhere, from Europe. There was no land over there. But once land was discovered, all of a sudden the consciousness opened, and everybody started cruising over there. They in Europe, those guys, they claimed that Columbus discovered America. How ludicrous is that to think that you discovered something that millions of people already live on? All right, yeah, they discovered it. All right, what they discovered was a new awareness. That's all. They didn't discover anything. So where am I going with all that? Well, it's my belief, folks, and what drives me, if you haven't been watching me before, what really drives me is this notion of raising our vibration to a higher consciousness level, all right? And that it struck me when I was watching Garland O'Neill's Rhythms of the Universe last night at his meeting, this whole notion that if we don't step up our ability to become aware and have intuitive powers that we are endowed with, clearly, but that we do not use. If we do not use these intuitive powers, we will be steamrolled by the technology that's coming. With regard to things that people can imagine that are rapidly becoming true, all right? I read two very disturbing books when I was in high school. One of them was called 1984, and that book still bothers me. The book by George Orwell. That is a very, very disturbing book. And Don't Look Now, ladies and gentlemen, but all that kind of stuff is rapidly coming true. All right. This notion that the government here's a quote from 1984, and it's all about how the government controls the mind of the population and creates servants, creates people in servitude. And let's see, 1984. The eyes, always eyes watching you, and the voice enveloping you, asleep or awake, indoors or out of doors, in the bath or bed, there's no escape. Nothing was your own except a few cubic centimeters in your skull. All right? Now, that is a freaky thought. All right? You do not have a private life anymore. Do you realize that people of my generation and maybe a little bit younger, we are the last generation to have a private childhood, a private upbringing? That is a thing of the past, all right? You cannot really function in this world without being recorded on multiple levels. You carry around this phone. This thing... Hey, don't look now, but this thing here, it can hear you, it can see you, and a tech guy told me that one of the easiest things, I don't know, there's something ringing at me, and I don't know what that is, but a tech guy told me that one of the easiest things to do is to remotely turn this on. Now, there's something going on here. It's a strange technological world, and I'm not sure from where this sound is coming, but I'll try to remedy that if I can. Anyway, we're under surveillance, all right? A couple of years ago, my daughter came to me and she said, "Dad, I was looking at your computer last night and there's a piece of tape on the screen." And I said, "Yeah, I know, I put it there." And she goes, well, it's over your camera. Why did you put it there? And I said, "Well, honey, because I don't really feel like being on international television tonight." And she goes, Well, yeah, but you have to turn the camera on. It doesn't just automatically come on. I said, yeah, how do you know? And she was like, well, they can't turn on your camera. And I said, how do you know? I said, bring your telephone over here. She brings her iPhone over, and I say, hey, Siri. And the thing goes, yeah, what do you want? Here's my computer saying, yeah, what do you want? And he is listening, all right? Watson is listening. What's that other one? Anyway, multiple surveillance devices, and you're in a situation where you're under surveillance all the time. Get used to that, because that is not going away. And I don't mean to bring you down with that, but I had a job here a couple of years ago. I moved to Austin, Texas, and I didn't really want to dive right into real estate there. I just wanted to kind of get the feel of the place again after being away for so long. And so a friend of mine introduced me to a limo company. I started driving a limousine in Austin, Texas for all sorts of different people. And I mean, this job didn't pay very much, but it was all kinds of fun. And I had some of the most interesting conversations with people. One of the most memorable was, if you've ever heard of a rapper named Flo Rida. All right. During South by Southwest, Flo Rida and his entourage rolled around with me in a Suburban. I was their driver, and it was all kinds of fun. You haven't lived until you've been rolling around at 2 or 3 in the morning with a bunch of big black brothers, all ready to go find a good time, and they're all packing heaters and talking gangster talk, and Flo Rida, a very nice man, and had a good time with those guys. I love you, Flo Rida and company. All the greatest. But and I dealt with a few other celebrity types, but where I really gained a lot of insight into where our world is going, into this brave new world, this 1984 world, where I really got it, was talking to all these high-tech executives. For you guys who are not aware, Austin, Texas has turned into the Silicon Valley of central United States. And especially because it's so freaking expensive in California to do anything, that you got a mass exodus coming out of California, all kinds of different people in general. They changed the tax law where you got to pay your state income tax and your federal. Can't write it off anymore, so you got to pay both taxes. And on top of which, it's just ridiculously expensive to live over there. So what's happening in Silicon Valley is all these companies are bailing out of Silicon Valley, or they're taking a bunch of their operations and moving it to Austin, Texas. And so you got all these tech people moving in and out of there all the time, and the higher level execs, they hire limos, and I would roll up and pick up. I picked up people, the chief information officer of Facebook, very nice guy from India. We had a long conversation about different stuff that they're doing, and I formulated a question to these tech guys, and it was I said, from where you sit in your position, what do you think is going to be the most world-changing thing that affects my future in the next 3 to 5 years? And then I'd just be real quiet. And these guys, if they felt like talking, sometimes they spilled this amazing information to me. And let's see. Anyway, so the chief information officer of Facebook told me that in the next 3 to 5 years, especially the high-end computers, not going to have a keyboard. You will control it with your mind, with implantable technology in your mind. All right, now get your mind around that. And that technology, oftentimes we think that we have to give permission for technology to be implanted in us, like an injectable chip or something like that. They can sprinkle smart dust on you, or get it inside your nervous system in some way that you don't even know. Right, and all of a sudden you have remote controlled technology inside your system, and so that's the chief information officer of Facebook. The driverless car software guys tell me that there's driverless cars are already here, and most of them, they all talk about that the technology's already here, you just can't see it. All right, driverless cars are here. There's some strange thing happening here. Anyway, that is so weird. There are some strange people chiming into my live stream here. And I've never seen anything quite like this. But again, it's a strange technological world. And the artificial intelligence and virtual reality are going to change everything about the way you shop. They already are getting your number on everything, how you behave, how you shop, what you think. Over in China, they got citizenship rating systems. Okay, where depending on what you do and who you know and where you talk and what you do on social media and what you say on your phone, artificial intelligence is compiling a profile on every Chinese citizen and pumping out a citizenship rating system, which is the decision maker on whether you can have a passport, where you can travel outside of your city, whether you can buy a car or even a loaf of bread. I don't know. It's horrible to think about, but it is our reality. And you can take the ostrich approach if you want, ladies and gentlemen, but burying your head in the sand is not going to make it go away. Your tax dollars are funding the research on every technological front you can imagine. All right, and in every different technology there is, the United States of America is spending billions of dollars to stay in front of the game. Whether it's ethical or not, it matters not. I had a long talk with the head of a genetic engineering firm who basically told me that designer human beings are already here. They're already a reality. That basically that genetic code is just like computer code, all right? And you can mix and match code any way you want to. And once you got it figured out, artificial intelligence runs through all the different selections, the different choices of how to match up the code and to get the right one. And that is our reality now. And I said, well, would people actually want to do that to their kids? And she said, well, think about it. Once it's all figured out and out in the open, and that if you don't genetically alter your children, that they're going to have less advantage in the world, less opportunity. The smart, upgraded kids are going to get all the jobs, all right? And not to mention the physical, sports positions and things like that. It's going to go into this whole new deal, and that's scary and depressing. We also talked about Egypt and the Egyptian pyramids and how all the hieroglyphics and the statues, the precisely carved statues in Egypt, what do you see when you look at those? You see genetically altered humans, all right, in Egypt. Think about it. Think about the Sphinx. What do you see? You see a cat with a human head. You look at some of the most famous figures in Egyptian history. What do you see? You see men with bird heads and animal heads and things like this. Now is that true, what they were doing? It's hard to say, but they were on to it. It seems like to me that the people who could build pyramids with such great precision, there's all kinds of stuff they can do. If you look in your Bible, in the book of Exodus, when Moses went to Pharaoh, the guy who could build pyramids. And he said, hey, God told us that if you don't let my people go, that we're going to turn the Nile into blood, or we're going to do this. God's going to do that. And Pharaoh's answer looked him straight in the eye and said, oh, that ain't no big deal. Our sorcerers can do that. Who were these people that could build pyramids and do all these other fantastic things? And they had powers of consciousness, in my opinion, that we do not possess, or at least that we are not well acquainted with yet. That is my opinion. Anyway, don't get me started on that. The fact is that in my little limo driver job in Austin, Texas, I was exposed to all sorts of people, high-level executives going to private jets in the back of Austin Airport that were telling me all these technologies are already here. There's one guy that talks about this electrical stimulator thing that repairs spinal cord injuries and reconnects the electricity in your nervous system. The Harvard the Harvard vice president, nice old guy, wonderful guy. And I had a long conversation with him about nano insect drones. He said, the moment in his life, in his 80-year life, that just totally blew his mind was when he looked at a computer screen and could see the world from a bee's eye view. This little insect drone with a camera on it flew under doorways and through drain pipes and could land on your mantle and put you under surveillance. They have all manner of military applications. He said the Department of Defense is funding Harvard to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars to develop nano insect technology. They swim, they crawl, they fly. And he said one of the biggest problems is keeping a battery powered up in this thing so it could move around. How to keep it charged up. And anyway, the point is that we are headed, and we are rapidly going into this brave new world with all sorts of technology that your average slob like me doesn't even understand, not for a minute. I carry around this giant computer in a little bitty package, but do I know how most of it works? No, I haven't got a clue. I just know that I can use it for different stuff. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, that we are at the mercy of a lot of this stuff. We are not in control of what's ethical and moral. Our tax dollars go into all kinds of stuff. We don't got a clue what they're doing with it. All right. The Department of Defense is funding that genetic engineering company. They're funding the nano insect drone. They're funding Dell Computers. Hey, and this is what makes me think of that quote that I just read you from the 1984. Always eyes watching you and the voice enveloping you. Asleep or awake, indoors or out of doors, in the bath or bed, no escape. Nothing was your own except a few cubic centimeters in your skull. And guess what? They want that too, all right? They want to implant technology in you and know your thoughts, all right? And be able to remotely access your brain and nervous system, all right? That is what your tax dollars are paying for, ladies and gentlemen. Stuff like that, all right? Now, it's not to get depressed over it. It's just to become aware, all right? To become aware of what's happening. And I submit to you that this notion of releasing that left brain logical a bit and allowing that right brain intuitive to come up and bringing about a balance between the left and right brain and bringing up that strong electromagnetic heart energy that will raise your vibration, raise your consciousness level. and create a harmony with others around you. That, my friends, is how we survive in this brave new world. That it is not just a matter of, oh, it's interesting, or I could be more prosperous, or I could know things if I had a stronger right brain intuitive that allowed me to see better. It's not so much about that, it's about our very survival as a species. Because if we can't develop ourselves good enough, it's always going to be this us versus them, those in power controlling those that are not in power. The other book that I was thinking of is The Brave New World, and some of the things that that was another one of these books by Aldous Huxley, who envisioned this world where technology had taken over, and people were maybe in this servant mode, and we were the products of an industrialized money-making machine. This quote here grabs me. A love of nature keeps no factories busy. All right, a love of nature. Think about it. The business model of corporations requires that these corporations grow. Right? We are headed for this train wreck between the needs of the average human and the needs of the corporation and its business model. All right, and really, when it boils right down to it, a corporation cares much more about its ability to strip natural resources off this planet and sell them to the public, and manufacture them into different things. When you cut them right to the bone, folks, that they have to, for their very survival, use the natural resources and keep markets in place that are benefiting the corporation, because that's their business model. Let me give you a couple of quick examples. If good health breaks out on this planet tomorrow, and all of a sudden everybody is well, it's going to devastate huge industries, pharmaceuticals and medical care and so forth, if they give us cures for the different ailments. So that is not a good business model, to give human beings cures for their diseases. It's not. It's beneficial to them when we have an outbreak like the coronavirus, for example. All right. For most human beings, this is bad news. All right. For pharmaceutical companies, people who create antidotes for that kind of stuff, people who create goods and services, that's actually great news. All right. Economically speaking, that serves their business model very well. All right. Sad to say, but it has swung out of balance in so many ways. I'll give you another example. If peace breaks out on this planet tomorrow, and people don't really want to fight each other, people don't really want to be us versus them, all right? And all of a sudden they want to be one big happy family, and they don't want to, dominate each other and kill each other. Guess what? It's going to devastate enormous industry, enormous military, industrial, complex companies. And jobs. This is kind of the train wreck. It's like oh, if we do this, one guy in the limo, as a limo driver, I was talking to one guy who worked for a pharmaceutical company, and I said, what kind of medicine are y'all using to? What kind of diseases are y'all curing lately? And he was real quiet, and I had gotten to know him after a few times driving him, and he said, he's real quiet, and he said, Steve, we're really not in the business of creating cures. All right, we manage stuff. That we're a management kind of company, and he said if we go around curing things, we'd be out of business. All right. Take AIDS, for example. He said just one small example. Take the AIDS virus. All right. If we create a pill where you take this and all of a sudden nobody has AIDS anymore, he said, which I believe they have, and you put that on the market within a short period of time, it's going to wipe out an enormous industry that manages the AIDS virus. All right. And so if we go around curing that, it's just going to collapse a giant industry. All right. This is the world we are in. This is where we live. You may not like that. You may think that's immoral and unethical, but you're not the CEO of that company. All right, probably. The fact is that we've got to the way our system is set up in this dominant market society. We cannot get out of this matrix unless we have this right brain intuitive. Otherwise, we become servants. Let's see. Here's another quote from the Brave New World on being our own masters. We are not our own any more than what we possess is our own. We did not make ourselves. We cannot be supreme over ourselves. We are not our own masters. Basically, I heard a quote not too long ago that he who controls the narrative controls the universe. He who controls the narrative controls the universe, and he who controls the past controls the future. And so, if you can, we wake up into this world. We have to go through about 15 or 20 years just to become awake to what's going on around here, and then we only last between 60 and 100 years, let's say. And so we only have a limited amount of time to actually figure out the game a little bit. And what you realize is that you have been born into a game. You really have. And that it's a game that pits us against them. We do this to them because they're not of us. We are good and they are bad. We are right and they are wrong. And we're born into this game where we have big industries telling us what's good for us to eat and what is healthy and not healthy. You got the American Medical Association. Why are they there? All right. Well, they're there for good things on the one hand, to try to keep you from being poisoned by some charlatan. But on the other hand, they're heavily controlled by pharmaceutical and medical industries that want you to buy their products and not use, for example, natural plants of the earth. The notion that you're a live human being free on the earth, but you cannot pick a natural plant off the ground and use it somehow as a consenting adult, and that if you do, if you use a natural weed like marijuana, that people will come and point guns at you and drag you off to jail. Why is that when we're now waking up to the fact that this plant has all kinds of useful purposes? It's cheap, and it has medicinal purposes, construction purposes. It's a paper replacement, a cotton replacement, all sorts of different stuff, and has been used for thousands of years. But why did they make it illegal? Because it messes up their market share. It jacks with their rice bowl. All right. And so this is the game you've been born into. And again, this is not to depress you. It is to encourage you that the only way out of this mess, really, as I can see it, is to develop those right brain intuitive skills. We're not going to make it if we don't have a balanced brain that allows for that right brain intuitive to come forward. And what I've learned in 2 years of hosting this weekly discussion group called the Forbidden Discussions, it's been fascinating. And I actually started it in Austin, Texas, because I had all these unusual experiences and I wanted to talk about them. And I was hoping I'd meet a handful of people that I could talk with. Things that are taboo, things like alien visitation or out-of-body experiences, past life regressions, and intuitive experiences, divine guidance, divine protection, things that happen that help you along the way that are unexplainable, plant medicine, psychedelic experiences, all these things that are taboo and forbidden. Hell, I wanted to talk about them, and I wanted to get this stuff out in the open. And what I found, ladies and gentlemen, in this 2-year research is that people are hiding. People are hiding their right brain intuitive because they're afraid of being shunned from the group, of being kicked out of the tribe, and going from being one of us to one of them. All right, and this is like a horrible thing. It's like a mindset, this fear that we're not going to be accepted into the group, that we're not going to be normal. And so what happens is that people cloak themselves. They don't tell about their genuine human being experiences. We don't honestly share with each other what's truly happening, and we're guarded, and because these institutions have been set up to make us label each other as good or bad or right or wrong or whoever, weird or normal, and we're so afraid, so deathly afraid of being outcast, that we cannot be our genuine, authentic human being selves. And one of the things that drives me to talk about all this is because I'm growing a love for humanity. I love you. I really, truly do. And I am unwilling anymore to pretend that I'm somebody that I'm not. All right? I'm going to, come what may, I'm going to spill it out there any way it comes to me. And if you or your institution don't like that, I've got to be okay. I stayed in a Buddhist monastery for 1.5 years, and one of the things they taught us, I didn't go to classes, or I didn't become a monk or anything. I was basically a helper around this beautiful 35-acre ranch. I helped the monks do a lot of things, but I talked with them, and they taught me things. And one of the most important things they taught me is to do your best and then be okay with what is. Right? Do your best in all circumstances, and then be okay with whatever happened. And if anything I say to you or to anybody else doesn't resonate and you don't like it, I got to be okay with that, and I'm going to be. And I'm going to be my authentic self, and I'm going to tell you that I have intuitive powers that I'm developing, and I believe that they're going to help me as I go along. And I truly believe what Sir Ken Robinson. If you've never seen Sir Ken Robinson's, it's one of the most popular TED Talks on YouTube, and go see that. It's about a 20-minute talk, and he's an educator from England, and he talks about how basically we're strip mining a certain commodity out of the left brain, logical, and we completely neglect the right brain, intuitive. And he talks about that story of Gillian Lynn, who was the dancer, and she was disruptive in school. There's so many millions of people, especially in the United States of America, millions of us, that have gone through this academic system that says, okay, you need to be like this. You need to, reading, writing, arithmetic, and, behave, sit in a chair for, 6-8 hours a day when you're a little kid, and if you can't do that, then you're somehow bad or weird, and by the time, a whole huge portion of Americans, don't resonate with that system, and so they get bad grades, and by the time they get to be 18, they think they're not worth a crap. All right, when the fact is that many of them are these beautiful, intuitive people that have all sorts of skills and a lot of the stuff that'll get us out of this mess. But we have not developed that. We have not rewarded that. And it's my impression, as I've said before, that one of the most oppressed people groups on this planet is the right brain intuitive people who have all sorts of insight that we need. All right, but we've shoved them off into a corner, and we've only valued and rewarded financially the left brain logicals that can function in a corporation or create some good or service that the world tends to want. And this imbalance, this is what has driven us to the market-driven economy, the corporation that's got to follow its business model, whether it's good for mankind or not. And we're going to suck out all the groundwater and suck out all the oil and dig up all the resources, burn the rainforest, man. Get all those fish out of the ocean. And it's like my daddy said one time, and Dad was a cynical man, and he was funny. You'd have liked him, but he displayed a sort of a logic that your average capitalist does. He's like, hey, I got mine, and that's what I need. That's it, And we were talking about air conditioning, and he said, well, hell, I want clean water and clean air, but if they came to me tomorrow and said, well, look, Eddie, that the air conditioning, the freon in it's hurting the ozone layer, and we want to protect the planet, so you got to stop using that air conditioning or the planet's going to be destroyed. And his answer would be, well, hell, baby, the planet's going to be destroyed because I ain't stopping using that air conditioner unless you give me something else. All right. And the corporations keep producing things that are bad for the environment, and then they say, well, you got to figure out a way to throw it away, Mr. Consumer. That single-use plastic, that plastic bag, well, that's bad for the planet, and so if you go and buy those baggies, well, you got to figure out how to get rid of them too, because they're bad, all right? Well, I submit to you that it is the corporations who need to stop making that crap and selling it in the stores for so cheap. If they really care, the people with the money care. Truly, the people who have the political influence because they got all the money, they're the ones that got to stop making that stuff and not putting the responsibility on the consumer. Because you know what, folks? There's nothing quite like a Ziploc baggie to keep my sandwich fresh. And if I'm out in the park and the only place to put that baggie when I'm finished is in a trash can, and there's no recycle bin anywhere, you know what? I'm not going looking for a recycle bin. I'm going to put it in the trash can. It's going to the dump, all right? Or who knows where once I put it in that trash can. And that's just one of many examples. You got to stop making that stuff, all right? That you got to cut it off at the source. They say, when you take motorcycle driver's ed, and one of the questions was, what is the first thing you do if you want to reduce your speed on a motorcycle? And a lot of people hit the brake. But really, the first thing you do is release your hand from the throttle, all right? That's the first thing you do when you want to slow your vehicle down, is stop giving it gas, all right? And I submit to you, with regard to industry and things that are produced that are bad for this planet, you got to first stop producing that. You got to slow down that machine, but they don't want to, folks, because the business model is what stands supreme. All right, that is what that's what drives everything. So this limo job I had in Austin was amazing, because I had access for a few minutes or sometimes 2 or 3 hours. I had access to some amazing people. And these bankers that I used to drive around, what they're trying to do, they go to this place that sets up all their online banking. It's called Q2 in Austin. It's the online banking giant, and this is where you go when you want everything in your bank to be automated and easy. And what these bankers are trying to figure out now is how you can get a loan for any amount of money just by pressing one button on your phone. You turn on your phone, you get drunk one night and say, hey honey, let's remodel the kitchen. We need about $250,000 to do that, or whatever it is. And you just, open up your phone, press one button, and bing, it's in your bank account. You've now gotten a loan, all right? And they want that easy. Things that you purchase, and they know the impulsive nature of human beings, and they know that, you see something online, you say, bing, I want that, bing, I want that. And then it comes to your house. They can take your money out of your account quicker and easier than ever before. And they know what your habits are. They know what kind of bait to dangle in front of you, because they know all your online activity. And so I submit to you that while these corporate forces with these business models that they cannot deny, they have to keep driving those business models for their corporations. And they are getting to know you better and better and better. Governments, corporations, nonprofit organizations, whoever they are, they want to know you. They want to get into your wallet. They want to get into your life. I mean, the Dell computer executives that I met 5 or 6 of them, really nice guys. They got these corporate jets in the back of Austin Airport, these beautiful Challenger jets and stuff. You want to see some cool toys, just go in the back of Austin Airport, back there at Atlantic Aviation, and I think it's Signature Aviation. My God, the lives that people live with these kind of toys. Anyway, the Dell computer executives, when you ask them, what is Dell doing? When you put the question to them, from where you sit in your organization, what's the most world-changing thing that's going to affect my future in the next 3 to 5 years? What is Dell working hard on, along with the Department of Defense, mind you? They're getting tons of funding, for everything. The main focus that Michael Dell will tell you that they're doing is called the Internet of Things. All right, the Internet of Things. And what he's talking about, baby, is hooking up this entire planet to the internet, right down to your toaster and every electronic thing, and hopefully, to get you hooked up. You, in fact, are an electronic thing. And get your mind around it, because that's what they want, all right? They want for you to be hooked up to the internet. They want, your brainwave patterns to be hooked up. They want to control your mind, your behavior, your activities, let's see. We are not our own masters. Let's see. I'm just looking through the Brave New World again. There was this other quote, which basically is that you don't own yourself. Servants, control and power is really about making people happy to be servants to the machine, happy to not really have their own intuitive powers. Do you think for 1 minute that the machine wants you to be a strong right brain intuitive? It doesn't. The left brain logical is easy to guide. They give you their story. This is what happened in the past, all right? This is the story that we follow. This is why we are who we are. And you've got to follow this creed, this history, this package. You're part of that package, and you need to behave accordingly. And you need to follow along, fall into line, all right? And I submit to you that if you're stuck in left brain logical, you're going to be one of their robots for the rest of your life, all right? And your kids will even more. And so the message of hope that I have today is the development of the right brain intuitive and the balancing of this left and right brain, bringing a harmony in your mind that starts to permeate, and this notion of transference to other people around you, allowing them to come out of their shell and express you. And when I've stumbled upon this really because I just wanted to know. I had taken this plant medicine ayahuasca down in South America. I had had a Kundalini experience, if you know what that is. It was a high energy event during meditation. I'd been to this vibrational healer in Costa Rica. I'd had this, I'd suffered a lot of heat and pressure and trauma in coming back from Peru, and problems in my marriage, problems with the Baptist church, problems with the real estate company, problems being in Houston, Texas. And I was under this heat and pressure, and I kind of broke open in this way. And this is how it comes to me. It's my honest human being experience, and I believe that I was meant to come out of my shell somehow and begin to intuitively seek the proper path, because I wasn't on it, right? And so that's all by way of saying that I was coming out of the machine, and I started asking questions and believing myself. Really, the way that a lot of it happened was when I lived for 5 years in Cusco, Peru. And the PhD tour guides would tell me that the primitive people, the primitive Incas, built these massive stone structures with little copper chisels and hemp ropes. And that's how it happened. And we know because we're PhDs, and we're telling you that's what happened. And this is what happens in your school. This is what happens in your church. This is what happens in all authority structures, is that we know, do not question us. We know, and we are the controllers of history. We are the interpreters, the exclusive interpreters. And this is how it goes, all right? And I submit to you that there are millions of people. My old Baptist pastor, bless his heart, he would be the first to tell you that there are thousands of Christian churches that are closing in this country. All right. There are real estate agents all over the country who do nothing but sell churches that are no longer in use. All right. And why is this? Well, the Christian will tell you it's because people have grown fat and lazy, and they have turned away from God. All right. Now, I submit to you that is not so. It is that they actually believe most of the principles of Christianity. They fit with the intuition. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Care for widows and orphans. I've spent a lot of my life doing this as a Christian missionary. And I continue to be a Christ follower. But the reason they're falling away is because of this exclusive notion that somehow you've got the lightning of God crammed into your bottle and nobody else can have it but the people in your group. That is why they're falling away. It is a universal right, and the ability to sense what is true and correct. This notion of the eternal lake of fire, and if you don't walk our walk and talk our talk, that you get tossed into this place, that is the human wish for monopoly. All right, that is a human quality, and your intuition, if you can access your intuition, if you haven't been covered up by somebody else's notion of reality. If you can access your intuition, you can feel that that's not so. If you can access your intuition, if you're let's say a Republican, and you can access your intuition, you'll know that all Democrats are not crazy, all right? They're not bad. They have a different viewpoint. That is all. But if you can access your intuition, and especially if you've traveled some, you'll know that all Muslims are not bad people. You meet one of them, it's a lot different than meeting a government, right? You go into someone's home who's a Muslim. You go into North Korea, I bet you wander around the country there if you're not molested by the government. You go into someone's private home, they're going to be nice to you. They're good human beings. And so your intuition tells you, at least my intuition tells me, that God brought us here and He's taken us all home. All right, and I refuse to. And as I go along, I try really hard to look at every human being as an extension of myself. All right, and especially the ones that are really different from me. I especially work at identifying them as part of myself. And it will not serve, folks, as Ken Robinson says, it will not serve us in the future, this notion of us versus them. And the only way we can get rid of that and not be stuck in some government's notion of who we are and what tribe we belong to, and whether it's a government or a religion or a political party, or so your meetup group, I don't care who it is, if you're stuck in this notion that we are right and they are wrong, and we are better and they are not, and we're going to live and they're going to die, and if you are stuck in this place, then I submit to you, you're not in touch with your intuition. All right, and thousands, millions of people, that go to a Christian church, and they will say, "Well, yeah, I have a problem with all these people going to hell, but I just follow along." Lord knows that I have gained tremendous things from being a member of the Baptist Church. I love the Baptist Church, absolutely love it. And I've met so many wonderful friends and learned so many valuable lessons. And, I buy into 99.9% of the package, all right? But it's that last percent, that 0.5% that caused me to walk away from the Baptist Church after over 23 years, all right? And it's because I cannot be honest. I cannot have integrity. I cannot be honest in the face of my Creator if I buy this notion that we get to go to heaven and you don't. It's like Stephen in that movie Braveheart. I had a talk with the Almighty this morning, and He says He thinks He can get me out of this mess, but He's pretty sure you're fucked. I can't roll that way, baby. I must find a better way, and I believe that the better way is the development of your own intuition. That you have been discouraged from. If you from this country, you've been discouraged of speaking your own heart and mind for fear of being banished from the group and excluded from the tribe and labeled with some scarlet letter that you're weird. All right. And we don't want to feel alone. The Quakers are the ones that developed Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia. And they are the ones that brought you the first penitentiary in this country. The word penance, penitentiary comes from the word doing penance. And these are the people that developed solitary confinement with the notion that, if you were locked away by yourself for a while and thought about God, that you'd work it all out and you'd be normal again. Well, they found out when you exclude human beings from society, almost to the last man, they go absolutely insane, right? If you're excluded from your fellow people. Yeah, we've seen children, orphans in Romania, who don't get hug and love and brought into, contact with humans. They go nuts. They're damaged for the rest of their lives. Bless their hearts. And so we have this fear of being excluded from the group, and that is what prevents us from developing our right brain intuitive, our intuitive powers, bringing about that balance that I believe will raise the collective vibration to such a harmony a new cymatic pattern will take place, that there will be a harmony that counteracts all this technology, and actually brings humanity into a more harmonious place where it's not so corporation driven, and military government driven. And there will be what I believe is what they refer to as the second coming of Christ, or the raising of Christ consciousness once again, to a more of a golden age, where humans can live in harmony and use their creative powers, and there will be great abundance for all, rather than that's mass wealth for a few and so many billions of people starving and not having electricity, and the basic human needs not being met. And so it is my hope, as I leave you this morning and this week here on the banks of the Guadalupe River in Kerrville, Texas. This is the way I roll, folks. It just comes straight out of my heart. And I love you very much, very, very much. And I love you enough that I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you exactly what comes to my heart and mind. It's not my wish to offend anyone. I'm not for or against, but I am I reserve the right to grow any way it naturally comes to me, just like a plant or a fish or anything else. I do not have to conform to someone else's notion of what is normal, and I will not, because my intuition says that I should grow naturally and freely, and I believe you should too. And so I'm going to leave you with that. I love you with all my heart, and Stevie the Guide here in Kerrville, Texas. I hope you come and see us, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, I meant to play this for you. It's such a weird world. Gotta have this.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into